extraordinarily helpful in setting today up and making it functional. So off you go, Mark.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stark. Thank you, everybody, for being here on this wonderful, beautiful August morning here in the Bay Area. So for the next hour, let's see, let me see if I can spotlight our Asl interpreter so that anybody who needs the interpretation are able to see.
Yeah, Lisa, I think you have your camera turned off.
Oh yeah, I'm not able to spotlight while the camera's off.
And also Jenny O'Shaughnessy is also an interpreter for this morning, and she needs to be promoted to panelist or
Okay, again, while Mark does that, I want to apologize. The clunkiness of launching is my mistake, not his, definitely not the Chancellor. So and I see the chat is now working actually. So yeah. So both interpreters need to turn their cameras on so that we can spotlight them. Up there, great, Jenny's on. Okay, great, excellent. We see you both. Thank you so much. And as you switch back and forth, if you want to, you can just turn, one of you have your camera off. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
And I'm sorry, one more question. If we could possibly turn on captioning, that would also help.
Okay.
And the chat is only, the chat is still disabled. Only panelists can see other panelists.
Oh, that's it.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I've just found the chat function, so that's now enabled. And the closed captioning is also now enabled. And I see Lisa, and I'm going to spotlight Lisa. And I also see the Chancellor. So I'm going to add the Chancellor as a spotlight so that you can see her as well. Good morning, Dr. Jackson.
Good morning. I was trying to speak when you were discussing the chat. The reason that we went to the webinar instead of the chat is that questions, when we did this the very first time, there was chat going on and there was Q&A, and I was responding, and we had other individuals, some of the presidents were responding, and there was confusion. People thought you aren't answering my question. And it was just chaos. And that is why we went to a single format of Q&A. There was an individual, one of our student trustees at the time, Trustee Cooper, felt that his questions weren't being addressed. And then I addressed another question and it went in the chat, and he took it differently than what it was presented because he thought I was addressing his question, whereas I was addressing the Q&A question, and it became, like I said, it was very distracting with the mechanics of answering questions because they were coming fast and heavy. If you remember, the first time there was, I think, about 500 people that had logged on or close to that. And so some of the presidents were helping, Mark, you were helping, Inger, you were helping, we were getting Q&A, we were getting chat. And it's, what question are you answering? And it was taken in the wrong way, I would say, just because I was speaking to one question and there was another one in the chat. So confusion all the way around.
Chancellor, it's
cacophony of noise, I would say, questions coming at us, and we were trying to, deal with all of them at the same time.
Great, thank you, Chancellor. So if now the chat is enabled, if you have a comment, you can put it in the chat. But if you have a question, please put the questions in the Q&A so that we can make sure that the questions are addressed. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jannett Jackson, an interim chancellor of the Peralta Community College District. She's somebody who knows the district very well, having started as a vice president of instruction at College of Alameda for many years, and then served as the president of College of Alameda for many years. So knows our district, knows our community very well. was an esteemed chancellor at the district south of us at the Chabot-Las Positas district, where she served with distinction for several years, retired, came back to be president of Skyline on an interim basis. And now we're very, very lucky to have her as the interim chancellor at Peralta. And by the way, she's a veteran of foreign wars, having served with our armed forces reserves, retiring as a colonel. So we're in really, really good hands with Chancellor Jackson. And with that, let me turn it over to you for your Flex Day presentation, Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Mark, and welcome all of those of you out there in the ether world. It's good to be with you again. It's hard to believe it's been a little over a year since I've been here with you. And I'm sorry, I have a long slide deck. And the reason is I'm going to go through a lot of them quickly, but I do want them to be posted and be a part of this archive for those that aren't here. So with that, Mark, if you could bring up the slide deck. And like I said, it's pretty dense, but I want to get through it because I want you to know what's been going on. We've been extremely busy this last year. A lot of you have been part of that, discussions, negotiations, accreditation, just a lot of things. So I want to touch base on a few things that I talked about in my initial welcome address back in August of last year, 2021. And then I want to also talk about some challenges for the future and some things that are happening statewide. And also I want to leave time for questions. So Mark, Inger, if you could start giving me, if I digress or whatever, because I believe in stories, then give me like a, 10-minute warning as I do. And then that way I can leave about 15 minutes for questions. So if you could make it full screen, Mark, I see that as well as the second slide coming up, then I'll go ahead and get started. So if you would go to the next slide. As I said, I just want to touch on a couple of things that I talked about in the past. A seminal book for me was Women Who Run with the Wolves, Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype. And in that book, Dr. Piccola Estes talks about the third pathway of listening, that there's three pathways to the deep brain. And the third pathway, she says, existed so that the soul itself might hear guidance and gain knowledge while here on earth. Or as Dr. Judy or Judge Judy would say, you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So with that, as we go through this next year, try to keep those things in mind. I sometimes feel that everybody wants to talk and nobody really wants to listen. And I think listening is really key, and not being dismissive to the other person's point of view and not just always projecting your own. And I try to pride myself in doing that, even though I may not align with what the other person is saying. I am at least listening to figure out where is there some commonality or some common ground, and how can I gain some knowledge as to why they think that way. So that is still a tenet of mine that I've had most of my life, adult life. I won't say I was like that as a child, but I will say most of my adult life. So next slide. The other thing I kind of coined last year, and I'm carrying it forward this year because I still think that we're on that path of getting back to where we were before. So I use that back to the future. Mark has used it in his marketing campaigns. And really, these are kind of my ground rules. Listen as an ally, listen and engage. See this as an opportunity to learn and plan effectively for the district. Recognize and respect that people are in different places and have a right to their opinions and their perspectives, and attack the issues, not the person. Look for opportunities in your conversations where you can join the other person, not judge them, and be curious. wonder why are they thinking that way, or why are they putting that forward? And then to be fully present. I know we're in a world where multitasking, checking emails, texting, looking at your phone is commonplace. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out and I've seen individuals and there's no discussion. Everybody is looking at their phone. Everybody is not really engaged at the moment of being together. And I'd like for us to kind of get out of that and make that kind of a rule. And I try to do it too. It's easy not to, because it's kind of ubiquitous with everything we do, but I do think it's important to be present in the moment. Next slide. So I wanted to go back and talk about some of our successes, and there's a lot of them. I didn't realize it until Mark and I were sitting and brainstorming about my presentation and what I was going to do. And we've done a lot of things. The board adopted a new mission statement, that had been a long time coming. It went through the shared governance process, but the board felt that it wasn't engaged in that process and that it was presented to them as a fait accompli. And they wanted to be a part of that. So we did adopt the mission statement to what went through the shared governance process. You'll see all of the different order that they are there. Our lives are changing because of it, that we needed to move forward with that. Next slide. The other thing we did was redistricting. It was required because of the census for us to go back and look at the census and then determine if we needed to hired a consulting firm that did that. Didn't make a lot of changes. I think Bill Withrow's area increased some. There was some extension along the outside of Alameda Island into Oakland area. And you can see that on the map, and it is on the webpage for your view. And the reason that's important is because we have elections coming up this year, and we have, I think, at least 2 board members that have said that they are not going to run for their district. And we have a third trustee, I think President Napolia Bella-Reese, who is also running this year. Next slide. So one of the major actions that we took, and we did it with intentionality, and that was our functional map. We decided we did not want to do it based upon the standards that really would not serve us well, because there was this kind of a gray area between what is the responsibility of the district, what is the responsibility of the colleges, their responsibility. So rather than looking at standard 1, 2, 3, 4, we really wanted to look at it and another one. And we took that to the board and it was adopted. It was widely disseminated. Individuals had input in it. And in fact, we did not send it in with our report, our follow-up report, because we didn't feel that we were ready. And then it went after we had our visit and the board adopted it at that time. But we've been using that functional map to align our processes with what our mission is, what our goals are, and the things that we want to really kind of tease apart. So there's clear lines of responsibility and there isn't, well, I thought you did it, I thought we did it, or it's a shared thing. So that was huge, I think, because it's guiding us now into the future as we make changes. Next slide. Our webpage. Oh my God, I have gotten so many positive comments about our webpage. So kudos to MCPR for getting this out. One of the things that we were asked is translation. So if you go to the webpage now, you will see where the little arrow is here at the top on the right-hand side of every page. There is a translation button. And you can click that button, and it will give you a different link. Kudos to the staff in the marketing, and just, this is free. We got this free. We thought we were going to have to pay someone, and you can imagine the number of web pages we have and to translate it into multiple languages, but Google does provide this free. So it is there available. Be aware of it, especially because we have such a diverse community in which we serve. So next slide. I think. Okay, our Peoplesoft Upgrade. If you recall, one of the things that we said in our follow-up report was that we would get our migration of our HRM system, our human resource management system, and our finance system, not all of it, but parts of the finance module would be implemented, including the asset management, which was something that we received in our FitMap report that we needed to address. We did extensive training on that. The courses are available online. There's links for them. So if you didn't make the training, you can always go back. We recorded it so that people would do it, because there were times where we were not in session for the faculty, but we had to still press on because we said we would have this accomplished by July 1st of this year. And we were able to do that and meet that deadline. So that's a kudos for all of those that worked on this. Are we over the hump yet? No, there's still things that we need to do, still things that we need to refine. And sometimes we need to change our processes. You know, our processes don't always align with what it came out of the box with PeopleSoft and Oracle. So we may have to change that. That is ongoing. They said usually 8 months to a year. You're going through that process. And like I said, we just finished up in July, so we've got a little ways to go. So be patient with us. If you find that there are problems, please plug those in, record those on the help desk so that we can go back and make whatever modifications are necessary. But it is also going to mean a little change in the culture because people are used to doing things a certain way. For example, it takes about 8 signatures before anything gets to me for a final signature. That's a little overly micromanaging, we feel. The system can take care of some of those, but people are used to looking at things. They're looking at touching things. They're used to having the approval authority when, and in fact, they're not part of the signatory process. They're there to check, but they can check after the fact and not become a bottleneck for things getting through the system. So I think we're going to have a little bit of a hurdle to get over, changing the culture and doing that, and not just relying on people to do it. But once we do move completely over, we're going to start phase 2, which will be looking at the student journey and other pieces of the finance component that we didn't implement. And CTIO Antoine Muhuele is leading the charge on that. Next slide. Holistic Safety, Security, and Wellness Advisory Committee. A mouthful, but that is what I dubbed it based upon the resolution. The committee can change its name if it wants to, but it was approved by the PGC on March the 25th of this year. This is the membership. It is out there. You can go and look at the web pages. The other thing that we did as an aside from this is we moved all of the district governance committees to board docs. Previously, if you were on a committee, you had access to the meeting minutes, you had access to resource documents, but you had to be a member of that committee to be able to use it because it was set up in teams. What we've done now is move all of that over to board docs. We're still doing the migration, so not everything is over there, but there are from henceforth going forward, and then we'll work backwards, moving those minutes and that documentation from Teams so that it's public, just like the board docs are public for the Board of Trustees. But this is the committee. It is going to be launched this year because it was so late in the year, March. We did not get recommendations, but if you are interested, please take a look at this. You will see that a quorum is 7. We wanted to make sure voting members is 13. Students have an advisory vote, just like the student trustees do. Excuse me. But we try to be broad enough, and this came forward as a joint recommendation from the Chancellor's work group. And it went through the process of all of the committees looking at it. And again, it was approved in March 25th of this year. Next slide. Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative. When I first came, I started listening sessions with different individuals, different segments, our colleagues, the District Academic Senate, the Peralta Classified Senate, PFT, SEIU, just anyone who wanted to have a voice could write me, and still can. It isn't over with. I still have an open door policy. One of the things that kept resonating throughout, not only with the classified professionals, but also with the managers and administrators, is that we had no formal onboarding process. People learned OJT. When I met with the classified Senate, they said, we're tired of training managers, Dr. Jackson. You know, you guys need to have some kind of formal process. So I got the presidents together. We all submitted for an IEPI grant, that Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative is what IEPI stands for. And we each received $200,000. So 5 times $200,000 is not a piddly amount. We all agreed that we wanted to have a professional development learning center, and that it would be district-wide, so there would be a standardization of onboarding and training, and I mean training of students, training of administrators. Inger has been a part of this from the very beginning, so professional development for the faculty and the Board of Trustees. I'm going to talk later about the board goals, but one of the board goals has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And yesterday, if you were not able to attend the plenary session, that is also something that the statewide academic senate, ASCCC, is also looking at. And they have some great resources that we'll be able to tap into to make sure that we maintain that culture of inclusivity. And that is who we are as Peralta. That is what I remember when I first got here. We just have not formalized it. We've had, diversity internship programs. We've had cohorts, succession planning, but all of that has kind of gone off to the side. So hence the theme that I'm still continuing with, back to the future. We know how to do this. Let's do it. Let's formalize it. Let's codify it. And so that it will go on and not just be because Chancellor Jackson is here, we did this. And when Chancellor leaves, then, it's at the whims of whoever comes afterwards. So unlock your potential is kind of the theme that we're using. Next slide. And Dr. Brown, Siri Brown, faculty member at Merit, is going to be working with Dr. Stark to make sure we roll that out under the auspices of IEPI. So you will be involved in that. There's going to be meetings scheduled at every campus for your input of what it should look like, what should we cover, what is its mission, and all of that. Clean audit. Oh my God, we haven't had a clean audit since I think 2018, something like that. So we got clean audit, unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that a CPA firm can provide. We're in the midst of another audit for last year. This one was for 2021. We got it in 2020. Now we're on 2021. The State Chancellor's Office extended the deadline. We should have gotten this in December of last year. They extended it until March, and we are now back on schedule that it should be completed by December of this year for the previous year's audit statements. So kudos to everyone. Again, this was a lot of work. at all levels, the colleges, district office, and even some external work that we had individuals come in like Ed Rock to help us get through this. So great work, everyone. And the links at the bottom all point you into the areas that you can go if you need further information. Next slide. CARES HERF funds. We are required to report our HERF spending to the federal government. To date, as of May, we had spent 65% of all of our HERF dollars. We still have 28.8 million to spend. A big chunk of that is going to come from our free fall that was really initiated by Laney College. Thank you, Dr. Besakoff and staff. The other colleges have a similar plan, calling it a little bit different. We were lucky enough to get some print and some press from the Chronicle, and our enrollment has reflected that. So thank you. Those ideas, you may feel like sometimes nobody really cares, no one's listening. We are listening. So please don't stop with those out of the box concepts so we can move forward. So we're doing good on this. HERF 3 is being used primarily for our return to campus, but we're getting a reconciliation of what those costs are going to be. And there may be some additional funds that are available to continue the free fall to the free spring. So just stay tuned. We'll see how it goes. Next slide. Collaborative governance. We've done a lot of things this last year. We started, it's not on this slide, but we started a Chancellor's work group that is kind of spearheaded by my office, working with all of our constituency groups, including our collective bargaining partners, so that we could jumpstart. It was like, okay, here's a great idea. Who's going to take the lead on it? So we started the Chancellor's work group. That was how we came up with the holistic wellness kind of infrastructure for the committee. We've had the tri-chair. That was something that we talked about. What should it look like? What it does is it allows our classified professionals, and I say that with intentionality. I don't just say classified professionals, or I don't just say classified. We use that a lot, classified, the classified. Well, they're professionals. And so I think by recognizing that in our language, it also recognizes their importance within our community. And so from them, this came about. We had some colleges that already implemented parts of this, but for the district-wide committees, we took it to the PGC and it was adopted. We do have a tri-chair right now, I believe in leading by example. And so Tichetta Henry from Merritt College was selected to be the classified on the PGC, and she's doing a fantastic job. Can we get the next slide? It's telling me my internet connection is unstable. The weather, I'm in Alameda, and the weather is overcast and cloudy, and I'm using Wi-Fi. So if I drop out, I apologize. Mark has been working with me on this. So Mark, you may have to step in, or Stephanie, you may have to step in also. So here are the board goals. You'll see number 2, diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice aligns with IDEA, which is what the State Academic Senate is using. And they adopted this, and we met many of the goals for 21-22. We consolidated some of those. You will see, you don't see, COVID, that was a goal last year, but you do see safety and security. And that wasn't there from the previous year. And they adopted this on July 13th, and it's in the board docs if you want to go back and look and see what was actually discussed and then adopted. Next slide. Grand jury response. When I got here, we had a grand jury inquiry. They said that we needed to respond by September the 21st. No later than that date, we did. And then they also required that we address it publicly, which we did on December the 14th. Again, I've given you the link for that. And I think that there were some things that we had to look critically at ourselves at. One was the Brown Act. We did not violate the Brown Act. I think that was one of the more serious charges. We made changes to align our board policies with our actions in terms of delegation of authority for HR as well as contracting. But by and large, we agreed partially with some of the recommendations. We disagreed partially with some, and some we disagreed wholly, and we agreed wholly. So all of that is available again at the link if you want to go out to look at those, and it is public document now. Next slide. Oh, awards, grants, and partnerships. This is one of our strategic initiatives. Enrollment have appeared in gyms. I think one of the crowning glories was the 2.8 million CIRM grant that BCC received. We did an MOU to support the sustainability goal, and the 100,000 Trees for Humanity organization is working with Merritt College primarily because of their horticulture program. We received awards from the Campaign for College Opportunity. Merritt College received the statewide award. So again, kudos for the work that they've done for diversity and equity. That is given only to one college per year. So it is a substantial award, Merit, for all of your work. The district, for its collective work, received a Black Excellence Award from the California Association of Black School Educators. Laney College, the Citizen, received recognition from Professional Journalists Association of Community Colleges. We're jumpstarting and reinvigorating our logistics program at College of Alameda for internships with the trades. And then our Chancellor's Award winner, congratulations to Sabrina Sablin from Merritt College. She is a non-traditional student. She came here, single mom, 4 kids, graduated, started a business out of her home, came back because she felt she needed more business courses, graduated again with a different degree, and her goal, she said, was to establish a work ethic and environment so that her siblings and her family would have social capital into the future and be able to be self-sustaining. So she is not our traditional student, but she is, it was very hard for me to make a decision, so I threw in some additional money for the second runner-up. It was that close. The other partnership that we've gotten, which I think is going to be long-term, is the $500,000 that we got from PepsiCo Foundation. Our first cohort of students was 30. We have a second cohort. I couldn't put them all here, but that really kind of taking the reins on this. And also Dr. Melvin Music, who is really the facilitator, kind of getting the students together, working with faculty and staff and administrators on the campuses, because the foundation doesn't have a presence on the campus. But you can see how diverse this is. So I just want to give out some congratulations to the students of the first cohort. Pepsi is looking at this being some that they can transition into internships, even if university, because it recognizes, Pepsi recognizes that it needs to build in, succession training itself and to build in those partnerships. And so I'm really happy about that. And because of that affiliation, Pepsi released about another grant, and we were able to get another $25,000 about that. Success breeds success. Next slide. And graduation this year. Oh my God. Our ethnic graduations were fantastic. Our in-person graduations, even though some of them were not graduations, but it was celebrations. Although I think Merritt College stepped outside the box, and they actually had a graduation where students dressed up in cap and gowns came up on stage. They had keynote speakers, and it was really like a graduation. Laney did something similar where students came up on stage, much more informal. I really like the fact that the faculty became a gauntlet. So students, to get to the stage, had to go through this gauntlet of congratulations and hugs, and it was just great. BCC doesn't have an outdoor area, so they were up at Merritt College, and my God, the food was fantastic. And we had a lot of community members that made the trek up there, some who had never been on the campus before. So, and College of Alameda had kind of a drive-by. So they had different stations where students drove with their family in the car. They could get out, hug, take pictures. All in all, it was just the reason that we do what we do is because of our graduates, and we are moving back a little bit more. So current and future initiatives, accreditation, and I'm going to ask Dr. Joker, Stephanie Joker, who is our district ALO, if she can walk us through these slides, because this is part of getting the word out, but we'll also be doing that on the campuses through the different constituency group organizations. But I will turn it over to you, Stephanie. And we are still accredited, even though we're on warning, we are still an accredited college. So Steph, take it away.
Thank you, Chancellor. Mark, next slide. So that's a lot of words. We've had a lot of stuff revolving accreditation, and you can see the confusion of all the reports and letters we've dealt with over the last few years. So where are we now? Well, where we were, we've moved from probation to warning, and this took a lot of work. Originally, we had 4 colleges. We had improvement recommendations, 1 at Laney College and 2 at Berkeley City. Improvement recommendations are only that. They are just, hey, something for us to strive for, but they don't count against any kind of accreditation issues. But we did have 10 district requirements, and those requirements are requirements that we have to do to be fully accredited. We have 2 timelines on this. We have fiscal issues that have to be addressed by January 2023. And then we also have board issues that have to be addressed by 2024. So 8 fiscal issues related to FCMAT, 2 improvement recommendations. We do not have to deal with those this coming October. Those are just improvement. And in January 22, the commission did move us from probation to warning because of the progress that we've made. So you can see, where was that progress? Look at what we've done. District requirement 1 on appropriate internal controls was met. District requirement 3 met on effective oversight of the financial aid program. District 4 board issues, these are all what we considered met. it is important to note that the work that has gone on here has been truly tremendous. And as for my previous position at the commission, it is nothing short of miraculous what the team at the district, working the faculty and staff have done together. Really, truly tremendous work in a very short amount of time. So you can see where we are. We still have these requirements. We still have 3 fiscal issues, and these are the progress that we've made. On district requirement 2, I think it's important to note, while we say significant progress, sometimes we cannot show absolute closure because it's a process that evolves. And so when you talk about responding to all audit findings, we won't know that until our next audit report. And the commission is aware of that. So where are we now? We have a draft that has been sent to our expanded cabinet and is now being disseminated through the accreditation liaison officers at the college, so that they can get the drafts out through the governance committees. I will say it is a very short timeline. You can see where we are in September. We have first and second read at the board, and the report is due at ACCJC on October 1st. So it's almost the same timeline that you did last year. And so I'm looking forward to welcoming our visiting team in October. The site visit is a Tuesday site visit, October 13th and 14th. The team will be coming back to look at the requirements as stated in the action letter and doing interviews with faculty, staff, and board members. So Chancellor, that's our accreditation update.
Okay, thank you very much. And you will be on this side of the table when the teams be a little bit different from where you were last year. Organizational update. I provided an update to the board on June 27th of some things that I wanted to do, as I said, about aligning our functional map with what we are actually doing and how we are performing. And the authorization for that comes under Title V, Section 53021, subparagraph C, which says that you can make changes as long as it does not result in an increase in the number of employees. You can make lateral changes, and you can also, positions that are currently occupied by an incumbent be upgraded, reclassified, or renamed without significantly altering the duties. So the other kind of historical underpinning for why we can do this is the recommendations that came from FitMat in 2019. They gave us 75 areas of concern. One of them was an in-house legal counsel, that's what they call it. They said also fill critical vacancies, balance resources more effectively with our needs, primarily in the area of FTEF and FTES, and then also retain our employees. And we've tried to do all of that. I won't get into a lot of it. It'll come out as we go along. I talked a little bit about it at the plenary yesterday regarding the classification study. And to fund the classification study, we need to come up with some ongoing cost savings. And we're looking at changing our insurance plans, not changing the substance of the plans, but changing carriers so that we're in a larger plan. And that way it costs us less. And because of that, we're looking at about a $3 million plus savings. With that $3 million savings, we can fund that salary classification study so that our employees, we can retain our employees because we're paying them more. And they aren't leaving to go to other districts to get paid to do the same job at a significantly higher rate. So the other was ACCJC made some recommendations regarding their special report and their site visit and fiscal monitoring. And all of these things that are there. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them. West came in and did some work for us on their structure and also the data integrity, and identify where there were gaps. FitMat recommendations, Title V and its authorization, the intent of the board, feedback from individuals on campus based upon our functional map. We made some changes at the district office. Like I said, I'd like to lead by example. And so the next slide will kind of give you an idea of that. Next slide. So this was our current executive leadership team. It is going to be changing. I've made presentations on this. You may already know some of the time that you know. The director of safety, public safety, it was a new position that was authorized by the board because of our move from the Alameda County approach. So that's a new position on here. Or Tiffany Joker. We also had a chief of staff that was also a special assistant. And you can see all of the others. The presidents are down at the bottom, color coded. But that's the primary district office executive staff. Next, there was comment. When we get the next slide, I'll get started now. There was comment, well, why does the chancellor need, a chief of staff, and why does she need a deputy chancellor? I will tell you that the board directed me to get a deputy chancellor because they felt that the amount of work that we had to do and accomplish was really too much for one person, and they did not want to see me burned out. And we had the position on the books, so they directed me to do that. Because we have a deputy chancellor now, I won't say there wasn't a need because Roy was doing an outstanding job as the chief of staff, but he graduated, got everything certified, and now has his JD in the clear. So it was logical, given what was said under Title V, since he was substantially doing legal work anyway, is the staff and working with counsel, or what we call general counsel. Because we have a deputy chancellor who is really chief operations officer, our chief operations are students, student services, student support, instructional, and all the things that entails. It didn't really make a lot of sense to have a vice chancellor in that area. So we downgraded that to an associate vice chancellor position. And we're recruiting for that right now. If anyone knows of anyone who they think would be great, please forward them to our HR webpage so they can apply. The other change I'll talk about in some of the other areas, because they're not, and I'll also give you just a brief overview of the costs that are involved in that, because remember Title V says you can't increase the number of people unless the board directs it, which it did in this particular case with the director of public safety and the deputy chancellor. So next slide. So some of you know, it's not been a secret, although I haven't made it public to the whole district until today. I've talked to different individuals. I've talked to our administrative team. I talked to our board first, but Adil Ahmed, who has been in the interim position as the vice chancellor for finance and administration, wants to go back to his previous position. And I think he had second thoughts about it. Then he thought about it again. And then he said, okay, yeah, Chancellor, I do want to do that. We changed the title. It used to be Associate Vice Chancellor of Finance and Budget. It was changed for some reason to Director. And because I want to have parity between and across the different divisions, and we have Associate Vice Chancellors, and we used to have Associate Vice Chancellors in Finance, the back to as Associate Vice Chancellor, provide more clarity. When Adil was not here, Marla kind of took on his role, Dr. Marla Williams Powell. But Nathaniel kind of took kind of a lead in that area, not becoming the Vice Chancellor per se, but providing clarity on the SCIF. He's done some great projections that we'll be sharing at the PBIM Summit that's coming up on what we need to do to make up the difference between what we are being funded currently under the whole harmless and what will happen in 24-25. And we only have a couple of years to make up that difference. And our costs are going to still increase. People are still going to want to get cost of living, but we aren't going to get that. But they're going to want that if we don't make up this delta. And we'll talk more about that with PBIM, but he will be stepping in as acting Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administration. I think our procedure says for 6 months, which then can be extended for another 6 months. And I will be making a decision because of the short time frame about Nathaniel's backfill. This will become effective September 1st. So I have a little to move forward with filling that on an acting basis. And again, that provides that succession training for individuals to step in, but still have their own job and to go back to that job at the end of that time. And I think that that is important for Peralta to do that. Next slide. So here's what I just told you about on the Chief of Staff, the Vice Chancellor, Associate Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs. These are the impacts of that. Human resources, there's really no risk management staff. Carrie Burdick is going to move back over to risk management. She's going to stay in risk management, but she'll be moving under, not under HR, she'll be moving under our general counsel, which is a position that Royal will hold, which is what it was when Tweed Nguyen was here, for those of you that remember. The executive director, fiscal services, none. There was a position in the warehouse that was vacant. There was a cost differential, so there is going to be a little impact on that, but that will be a recommendation that came from executive director of operations, which we do not have. The other open, unfortunately, out of necessity, spending on consultants to do the job that we should be having staff to perform. So next slide. General services, no impact. You'll see they have moved 2 individuals them to our public safety so that there would be someone there to support this new, department that we had to create because of our loss of using the Alameda County Sheriff. And you can see that too. That's reflected in the slide below that. Next slide. In the area of information systems, there were 2 positions that were vacant in that. We combined them into one, and it's the network director, project manager, and it will be a savings because we consolidated 2 positions into one of $12,000 per year in annual savings. Next slide. And then our return to campus. So that takes care of the changes at the district. I'm sure there will be some changes that are going to be ongoing that will be reflected at both at the campuses as well. And okay, it looks like I can't get my picture up because I have another meeting that was scheduled, and it's blocking me when I try. It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Chancellor, we turned off your camera because of the internet delays that you've been experiencing with your
Okay, thank you.
internet. Yeah.
Thank you. Return to campus. There have been a lot of changes, both at the national as well as the local county level. Currently, the policy remains in place for both employees and students, and we will assess that. You'll notice that in the news, they're talking about a new variant of COVID that has come out. So to be on the safe side, that is what we're doing. All the processes are the same. We are not having individuals in front of the campus clearing people to go in. We're following the lead of some of our other Bay 10 campuses as well as throughout the states. So we stopped that. That ended during the summer. And if you need more information, you can go to the Safe Peralta website. Next slide. Back to the future advertising. You're going to see a lot of this coming out in conjunction with working with the PIOs at the colleges. We sent out 288,000 households in our service area received postcards. We're branding things with the Back to Your Future, but highlighting the colleges. We're using social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And we are supporting in varying degrees all of the Fall is Free program. Laney and BCC are using the same template. College of Alameda has the theme of 500 on us, and Merritt College has a free for fall. But all talking about students who need to fill out the FAFSA and will make up the difference. The resource allocation model, we are going to be having a town hall. We were supposed to have one for the tentative budget, but IVC Adil Ahmed was not available for that. So we had to cancel that, but we are having one on Thursday. Please put it on. We will be sending out information September the 1st from 10 to 11:30, which is the time we've been using in the past to try to get more people. That is a Thursday before the Labor Day weekend. We made a change from our budget allocation model. We're now calling it a resource allocation model, and it's aligned with the student-centered funding formula. And CM has been working with us from Cambridge West, and I'll be talking more about that when we have our PBIM summit that's coming up. Next slide. Our 5-year strategic plan, all of the colleges and the district are working on that. The Ed Master Plan is at the colleges. The Strategic Master Plan is at the district. West Ed received the proposal. They are kind of guiding us through the process. One of the things that we did differently is that the district is using the educational master plans, the EMPs from the colleges, to inform their strategic master plan. Usually it goes the other way. The district does its master planning, strategic planning, and then the colleges try to align with that. We're going to flip it a little bit this time. We are looking at having a charrette on November the 10th. Please put it on your calendar. If you have individuals that you would like for us to invite, we're thinking this is going to be in-person charrette. A charrette is really bringing the community in. We want to find out from them, what are we doing right? What are things that we can improve upon? What do they see in the future that maybe we aren't aware of, because we're focused on what our subject matter experts are, which is education. So we want business individuals, we want elected officials, we want community leaders, individuals that you think could benefit and we could benefit from working with them and finding out what they want in advance, rather than putting out a plan and telling people, give us your response to it. I'd rather have that at the beginning, or at least in the middle of the process, rather than create a document and have our community say, you missed this important initiative. The city is planning on XYZ and you guys didn't put anything in there about it. So that is what we're working on right now. A lot of you have already been involved in it at the campuses. But the charrette will be a kind of a district-wide meeting and will be helped by West Ed to facilitate, and will involve a lot of you, including the presidents, as facilitators in different themes that we're looking at. STEAM might be a theme, or career education might be a theme. Health might be a theme. What was environmental could be a theme, but that will be fleshed out. But I just wanted you to know the date, and please, if you have individuals, we've already started a database with names and emails and titles and phone numbers, so that we can send this out in enough time to let people know. But I wanted to talk to you guys first before we started moving forward with this, so that you're brought along with us, not after the fact. Okay, next. Our financial prognosis. I know there's been a lot of talk about we're getting lots and lots of money from the state. What are we going to do? A lot of that money is based upon an analysis of revenue. And so the LAO's office, and again, the link is below, did an update on August the 1st of this year, indicating that they think that there could be a shortfall from the assumption of getting $210 billion. They're looking at economic data. They're looking at the big three, taxes from personal income, sales tax, and corporation taxes are not where they think it should be. And so the bottom line, the one in the green, that is the range that they're saying that we could be short from what it was based upon those projections. Unlike Governor Brown, Governor Newsom did not put in triggers. If some of you recall, Governor Brown put in things like, well, if we don't get what we thought, this would be a trigger. It would go in automatically because it was approved by the legislature. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but we will keep you posted. And again, you can go to the webpage. It's always out there. LAO webpage, the Department of Finance, Legislative Analyst Office does these updates. What else is happening at the state level? You may know that Dr. Eloy Oakley has retired. Well, I won't say he's retired. He's changed jobs. He's going back into consulting. Dr. Daisy Gonzalez is the interim chancellor, and the Board of Governors has indicated that it's going out for a permanent chancellor nationwide search, in the process of deciding on what firm is going to get the job to do that. The items that I've listed below are things that came out of appropriations that affect us. If it's green, it means that it's going to the floor and it probably will be approved. The ones in yellow mean that it was tabled or it's still in committee, and it probably is going to be dead for this year. And I won't go through all of this because of time, but I wanted to make you aware of what's happened in fact, that will affect us, the trickle down effect. Next slide. Collective bargaining negotiations. I want to thank all of those that have been a part of that, working not only in the spring, but also during the summer. SEIU has a number of individuals that are part of that, Local 39, and also PFT. So thank all of you. It is not a paid job. You don't get paid to do this. And we've been doing kind of a hybrid, some face-to-face, some remotely. So thank you for your participation, and applause to all of you as we move forward. And my last slide, why we do what we do. Yesterday, I was invited by the Classified Senate Vice President, Louis, and I can't remember Louis' name right now, but he works in EOPS. He is a classified professional. And he said, Dr. Jackson, we'd like to invite you to come to our learning community, Salam. And I said, oh, he goes, we are the only ones in the district that have a learning community that really focuses on Middle Eastern culture, learning, values. And I went there yesterday and I looked out at a room full of students. And it wasn't just women, you know, a lot of times it's predominantly women. It was probably half and half, men and women. They've had 2 orientations. I spoke to the second orientation, which was yesterday, and they were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I told them, and I believe this, that we are there for them. If it wasn't for them, none of us would have a job. And we should always remember that. We are here for them. We are here for them. So I close that because that is why we are all here. We have an amazing, diverse community. And I just want to say thank you for your continued support. It's been a challenging year. We're not over it yet. Louis Martinez E. Methal. All right, thank you for that, Inger. And he is the individual that is the vice president of the district, Peralta Classified Senate, PCS. So thank you. And I'll try to answer any questions or staff. If it's, you know, outside of my domain, I will ask them to speak up. But challenging year, but it's looking better than it has, guys. And my goal is to get us off of warning. That's what we need to do. Then we can get a permanent chancellor. Then we can
Chancellor,
some of these interim positions.
we're running out of time, but there are a couple of questions I wanted to make note of in the Q&A. Maybe you could, one of them was are the committee members going to be appointed to the holistic safety, public safety committee?
It's going to be by constituency groups. So the colleges will make recommendations. The bargaining units will make recommendations. And all of that is in that document that I shared. And it'll be posted so you can check that. And it was also in the minutes of the date that was there that should be out on the web for the PGC.
And Chancellor, there are several questions regarding our mask policy and the vaccination. Could you maybe spend a minute just explaining how fall is going to go? There are a lot of faculty questions on if we're going to be looking at students being cleared and who's clearing them, and are we still doing masks indoors? All of those questions.
I want to say maybe. We have not come up with the policy. The board is in recess right now. As some of you know, they won't be back until I think the 17th of September. And we're taking our cues from Alameda County, and we're also taking them from the Center of Disease at the national level. I talked to Dr. McKinley about that, and he said, you know, right now, Dr. J, given what's happening recently, like in the last week, with monkeypox and with this new variant, I'm really hesitant without going to the board and explaining all of that and getting clear direction from the board. Because remember, this policy came out of the board. They said, this is what we want. Staff, you know, drafted documents, negotiated, meeting confers to come up with that. So right now, even though the federal government is saying no mask, no distancing required, that has been widely publicized. We're taking a more cautious look at that. And I'm hoping that we will find that Alameda County's policy aligns with what the federal policy is, but we have not been able to anything that I know of. Regulations, we said we would follow the guidelines of the state, the federal government, and our local health officials. But if you look at the slide that I brought up, we are still validating the students. Faculty can go in and check. If they have a concern, you can always ask a student to step out if you feel that there's an issue with being sick, just as if they had a regular flu, because we don't know if it's COVID or not. But I know I hate to deal in the gray areas, but that's where we are right now. And to answer the question, Susan, we do have a policy. What I said is we are still following that policy. The only thing that we have not done is we are not having check-in points because the cost was prohibitive for us to continue to do that. And no other college in our region, out of the 21 colleges in our region, are doing what we were doing.
Thank you, Chancellor. I'm just going through the chats to see if there's other questions. Mark, are you in there as well?
Yes, I am.
May I just make a quick statement? I want to make really clearly, I put this in the chat, that the invisibility of the Q&A feature in this session is my fault. It was not the Chancellor's intention to be exclusionary. It was not the PIO, Mark Johnson's. I set up this webinar and made that mistake. So I apologize personally for that. And I've changed that setting for the webinar that will be later this morning, the roundtable. So the Q&A feature will be visible and people even could do thumbs up. I just want to make that really clear. Okay, sorry for taking a moment there.
Great. Inger, how are we doing on time?
So the next session starts at 10:15, and that would be the one that the Vice Chancellor of Etheria Smith will be doing. So we have a few more minutes. People should probably have a few minutes to grab some food and take a quick break. But I thought we might run over because I always talk too much. So we have until 10:15 before the next session begins.
Great. So there's been a lot of Q&A, and looks like 55 of the questions have been answered. We still have 14 questions open. There's no way we're going to be able to answer all 14 of those questions in the next 6 minutes. Steph, did you identify any other kind of general topics that the Chancellor could address?
There was just a couple of more that I think we're gonna have to do a little research on. Evelyn Lord asked about Wi-Fi hotspot spots for students. I know that some of the colleges are doing hotspots for students. I think Merit is. So that's one we would need to go and do a little bit more research. When you have questions, there were a couple of questions regarding HERF funding, and a lot of those things come from the institutional plans on HERF. So we're going to refer you back to the college, your college leadership on those. And I don't think I have anything else on my list, Mark. Do you?
No, I'm good. My suggestion is, well, first of all, thanks everybody for the great questions. Thank you, Chancellor, for sharing your thoughts. We'll be posting the recording of this video on Peralta's YouTube channel. I saw a request for the slides, and yes, we will make the slides available. We'll post them as a PDF and you'll be able to, we'll make sure that that is linked from the YouTube video because we know people will want to go and watch. Let's see. So the next session I know is the chat with Etheria Smith, the Interim Vice Chancellor of General Services. There's another webinar session that's coming up, I believe at 10:30, and that's the leadership panel. That'll include administrators, faculty leaders, classified leaders. It should be a very exciting panel discussion that'll go from 10:30 to noon. And then you all have the schedule for the rest of the afternoon.
Mark, before the Chancellor signs off, will you also let people know about the videos that we made with interviews with, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So Inger has been on it and has filmed a number of videos with other leaders in the district, including Jennifer Shinosky, Antoine Mehule, Tim Thomas. These are really, really great short videos, and you can access them from the Peralta YouTube channel.
And also the link to them is on the schedule for today as well.
Great. Yeah, my thanks to Inger for recording the sessions, and my thanks to Angel Hunter for getting them up on YouTube.
And if you could just give instructions, there are questions regarding how do they get to the next presentation? Do they stay in this room or do they have to log out and go somewhere else?
Yes, people
normally. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Go ahead, Inger, it's your show.
In the past, we've had one long morning plenary and it became complicated for the recordings, the videos. So today, each session has its own unique link. Those are on the schedule, which is an online living document. So yes. Dr. J, Chancellor Jackson, would you like to close us out with a few words or lifting folks up?
Well, I just put some things in the chat, and I just want to be clear and go back to what I said. And I think my second or third slide about listening. There's concern, I know, from all sides about the masking requirement, the disabled community. There was a comment in there about that and masking. And there was kind of an admonition of, make a decision today. We have a policy. It may not be the policy that some would like, but it is a policy and it stays into effect until the board directs me to change that. And so I just want to reiterate that again. I encourage people to become a part of this new movement that has been started in terms of holistic wellness. There are people that don't want to change, so you're going to see things back and forth, but listen with that third ear as to what they're saying and why they're saying it. I think that's important for us moving forward. There's a lot of talk about collaboration, but I really like to see more in terms of action, and collaboration doesn't mean that one person capitulates to another's opinion. Collaboration is just that, working together to find out the commonality and then to put the outliers to the side to say, can we do this? Can I live with this? Was a term that I was told, because we aren't always going to get everything that we want. So I hope this next year will be a fruitful one. I absolutely believe that this district is on the verge of greatness and reclaiming some of its past glory. And I'd like to leave feeling that I had a little bit of a part of that. I don't care about getting the guts and the glory. I really care about this institution as a whole, all four colleges and the district office, because it is a family. And we're moving more and more towards that, because what one family member does affects the others, whether intentional or not. So I hope we have a great year. We continue to move forward. We go back to the future, bring those things that were positive that we used to do back and implement them. I didn't mention this, but we're looking at bringing back the district enrollment management committee. I met with the district academic senate members. So a lot of things are happening. I couldn't compress it enough to put it all in the slides. And last thing that I forgot to talk about in terms of grants, we did receive $110,000 for each college to look at a feasibility study for student housing. So we will be pulling that together in the next few weeks, again, with guidance from the board, because it is a district initiative and the board has to approve appointments to that task force, or at least provide input. So if you're interested in student housing, but it's not going to be a 30-member meeting, but we do need to bring in our constituency groups as well as our community. So be thinking of that also. In terms of how we're going to move forward with that, so that it can be included in the facilities master plan as well. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for your continued support. Couldn't do it without you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the meeting now so that we can all get on with the next part of this incredible Flex Day agenda. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.